Welcome to this week's Q&A. We have a question that's been posed to us by several of our viewers in the US, and it relates to what's going to happen to housing price growth in Australia in 2025. Now, this time of the year, we generally have all the major banks come out with their forecasts and other economists and property experts come out with theirs. And I think the important thing to recognize is that we're going to have a situation where we have very divergent markets. Capital city prices as in aggregate forecast to increase somewhere between 1% and 5%. But you are going to have capital city markets and other markets that are going to be negative. And two of the capital city markets that seem poised to perhaps record the largest declines are Canberra and Melbourne. Whereas the capital city markets that are going to potentially grow very strongly again in 2025 are Perth, Brisbane and Adelaide. And the divergence is enormous. A lot of these forecasts, Perth up to 19 or 20% growth, Brisbane up to 14 or 15%, Adelaide 13 or 14%. They're pretty big numbers. But we're going to see a divergence, and say two of the largest capital city markets in Australia, Melbourne and Sydney, are poised to record some losses or some declines after recording some pretty strong gains, particularly in Sydney over the last couple of years. Melbourne's going to potentially be weaker. It's following a trend that's currently been setting. Sydney is forecast to potentially come down 1 to 5%. Melbourne perhaps 4 to 6%. It just depends on which particular expert you're talking to or which economist you're talking to, but I think it's important to recognise that there are certain markets within the country that are showing and are going to potentially show pretty strong growth in 2025. So it's important to get some research around this, look at some further granularity, look at what sort of homes are performing best in these markets and what the market is going to be looking for next year. And especially put that in context of what's happening with monetary policy. So at this point in time, most of the banks and many economists are saying we may not see the Reserve Bank of Australia produce an interest rate cut until May or June of next year. Others are saying that there may still be one in February, but overall it's going to make the markets work differently. So if we don't see any rate cuts until mid-year, certainly Melbourne and Sydney are going to be weaker. And then if we get rate cuts in the middle of the year, I think that'll bring some more buyer confidence into the market. It will assist with serviceability and hence borrowing capacity from banks. And you'll see a rising market then in those two largest capital city markets. So net at the end of the year, you may well see that those markets either have declined to a small degree or perhaps have increased to a small degree. And if that doesn't go according to plan, and let's say things happen, and I've often seen this happen, that central banks can't manage that sort of soft landing, then you might see rate cuts that are both larger and sharper than the markets are anticipating, and that could produce a different set of results which could potentially buoy property prices further. Lots of possibilities, but I think one of the reasons that we're getting this question even more so all the time from our United States viewers is because they're looking at the currency, and the Australian dollar is very weak compared to especially the US dollar. So a lot of people in living and working in the US who are Australian expats are saying, well, maybe this is a pretty good time for me to make that property investment that I've been planning to do for some time, and where should I make that investment? And that's where it's really important to make sure you get all your research right and have someone help you with that process. So look, this is all general information, but if anyone needs any personal help or assistance with their situation, please don't hesitate to reach out, email us or call us, and we'll have somebody contact you and help you with your own set of circumstances. All the very best for Christmas and the New Year. If you found this of interest, please click like, and I'll see you in 2025. I'm Andrew Unterweger.